Welcome. My name is Charlie, and this is the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. And this week, we have an interview with Misty. Hello, Misty. How are you doing?
I'm good. How about yourself?
We have some snow up here, a couple inches. It's winter in the Midwest, but I'm glad there's still seasons.
Awesome. It's currently summer in winter. Oh, I'm in Florida. It's almost 90.
Could you introduce yourself to our audience?
Yes. My name is Misty. I'll be 39 years old next month. I'm a mom of 4, and we are currently traveling the country full time with our kids and our dogs and just exploring, living out our adventures while we're still young.
In that kind of situation, what do you do for fun?
Everything. So for fun, outside hiking. I want what nature has to offer, the free stuff. I want to have these experiences with my kids. So hiking, kayaking, paddleboarding. Obviously, music is a big thing for me. Yeah, lots of hiking.
When did you quit Kratom?
My quit date is May 5th. I had to look on the count. I'm pretty sure it's the 5th. 2023.
Okay. I'm going on 2 years, over a year and a half now. Congratulations.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you.
When did you start Kratom? How did that look like?
I'm in a bunch of crunchy mom groups, and someone had mentioned how this miraculous natural plant gives her the energy to get up and to get through the day with her kids. And a few people had said that they used it as well. And so I decided to give it a try, which I did not do my due diligence. I didn't do deep enough research. I was told it's like coffee. It's just like quitting caffeine, and it just gives you a little bit of energy. It's not like narcotics. So I tried it, and it just started from there. It definitely gave me lots of energy. Having the energy to get up and get everything done through the day was so addictive. Just finally not feeling so tired and sluggish. And that's really how it went off from there.
Did you have a honeymoon period with it?
I would say no, probably because it wasn't my first rodeo with narcotics. I know that it's not actually a narcotic, or I don't know what you'd call it, but I would say no, not really.
So does that mean you had a previous history with drugs and alcohol?
Oh, yeah. So from 16 to 22, I was on the streets. I was smoking crack and shooting dope. So, I was, as far as the worst you can think it gets aside from death, like I was doing it all. So I definitely had, and that's why I say I should have known better. I should have done my due diligence. I should have known better, because I really I didn't throw it away, but it sucked. It really did.
How did your recovery from your life on the streets work?
It's not the way that most people say you do it for you. You got to do it for you. I happened to meet a really amazing man that I fell in love with, and I hid my addiction from him. We were together for about a year. He's from Israel. He found out, flew back to Israel, and said, get it together and I'll come back. So I got it together, and he did come back, and he did marry me, and I never went back to it. So that was enough for me. That scare was my rock bottom.
Yeah, everybody's path is different, and
Yep.
I'm glad it worked for you.
Thanks.
Till you encountered Kratom. How did your Kratom use progress then?
So I started just with the super expensive baggies that you can get in the gas station. And then soon after that, I found these Facebook groups. Obviously, my addiction progressed where one little teaspoon wasn't doing it. I went from that to massive lump spoonfuls that I'm not even measuring, throwing it in my mouth. So I found these Facebook groups. Then I started buying it by the kilo. And I would go through about 1.5 kilos a month. And it did not take me long to get to that point at all.
I always did the extracts. How much were you paying for 1 kilo?
So when I was getting it overseas, 70 to 100 per kilo.
That's a lot cheaper than buying them by the small baggie in the vape shops or the gas stations.
Yes, a lot cheaper. I wouldn't have not been able to afford my addiction if I continued that way.
When did you start? What year was it that you started Kratom?
Oh, man. I thought about that. It's so hard to say. Like, I know when I started my second bout, so I was addicted to it twice. I quit and had quit for, I don't know, almost 2 years, and then I got back on. I would say the year, let's say it was after my 3rd daughter was born, maybe 2016, 2017.
Why don't you tell me about that first quit?
So that first quit, I was lucky enough. It was a really hard time in our lives. My husband had been laid off, so he had the ability to take care of the kids. And that quit, I did it completely cold turkey. I'm not the type of person that can taper. I just don't have the self control. It's cold turkey or nothing. So I cold turkeyed it. And I'm not joking when I say that I just writhed in bed for 2 weeks straight. It was worse than heroin. And by the way, I cold turkeyed from heroin too. So I know that it is, for me, it was exactly the same. If anything, I would say it was worse because that first 2 weeks was intensely physical. And then the months, 6 months afterwards, I was still mentally suffering, just anxiety, lack of patience, no joy whatsoever. You know what they call that protracted withdrawal.
So, how did you feel after your first quit? How did it go after that?
After the terrible withdrawals and then 6 months of just having no energy and just not being myself, I really don't know how to describe it. Things slowly started to get better. And then COVID happened. I had to pull my kids out of school and I was stressed out about my husband. They weren't sure what they were going to do with his job. I had just had a brand new baby and I let stress get the better of me and ended up going back to it all over again. Oh, I lost my best friend all over the vaccine stuff. And it just was a really hard time in my life, as it was in many people's lives. And I would say I was literally off of it long enough to get pregnant, have a baby. And then I pretty much, within 3 months of having my daughter, like I slowly started to take it again.
Yeah, that was a very difficult time for many people. And we've talked to many folks who saw their use increase during that period. So you're not unusual, and it makes sense to try to find something to cope with really difficult times.
Right.
So how did the second round progress to the point where you wanted to quit again?
It got a lot worse. I just really felt my body deteriorating this time more than last. I lost 75% of my hair. I lost a lot of weight, which I needed to, but I just looked so sick. I lost it really fast. I couldn't eat, as I'm sure you cannot use the bathroom. That was awful. And I would get this thing called the wobbles is what I see people call it online. I don't know what it is, but randomly I would get these shakes. My whole body would shake. It would be like vibrating. I couldn't walk, wouldn't be able to talk. And it would happen one day and then it wouldn't happen for months, the same batch. And then it would happen again. That was really scary. And yeah, I started having pain in my side. Like I knew that it was slowly sucking the life out of me. I just knew it this time. And it scared me. It really did, especially with my new baby. And I felt like something big happened. I will say this. It was like 3 a.m. I woke up with really bad withdrawals. I went into the bathroom and I took a scoop like I always do. I would take it dry, dump it in my mouth and wash it down with water. And I choked. And I just remember my life flashing before my eyes. I couldn't even get air out. I had to slam myself over and over again. I had bruises on my chest, on my ribs. And I did end up getting enough out that I was able to breathe and cough the rest of it out. But it scared the shit out of me. And that the next morning, I told my husband, I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do. We were in the middle of trying to sell our house. I didn't know if it was going to mean rehab or what it was going to look like, but we knew that I needed to quit immediately.
That must have been really scary. I've read a couple counts online of people having a clunk kratom in their throat and and those wobbles. Some people describe them as like pre-seizures sometimes when they get really bad.
Yes, I honestly, I could have even had one or two. I wouldn't have known. And I was so terrified of asking for help or going to the hospital. With my history with drug addiction, I don't know how they treat addicts now, but Good grief. Just traumatizing. I don't ever like to go to the hospital or see a doctor.
What did you do to take steps to quit?
So, what I started doing is I pretty much really quickly realized there's no way that we could work out me going into a facility. My husband has a really good job now. He does work from home, which made it easier, but we were in the middle of selling our house. So, I had to call around. I was calling around to a bunch. I heard about SUBLOCADE, which is a shot that it's like Suboxone, but they inject a month's worth into your stomach and it like slowly releases over the course of a month. And I had heard a lot of people successfully even coming off of heroin with just one shot. So I started calling around to these maintenance clinics. And man, I tell you what, they need to update. The doctors need education on Kratom because so many of them are like, first of all, some of them were like, we haven't heard of it. Some of them said that's not addictive, it's not a narcotic. But finally, I found a clinic that would help me. And I ended up working out that we sold our house. We're not loaded. I don't have $2,000 laying around most of the time. So we sold our house, got the proceeds, moved into an RV. And then 3 days later, I went and got a prescription from them, had my first visit. They made me take the Suboxone strip for 3 days just to get it in my system before they'd give me the shot. And then I went in and got my shot. And it that shot was a lifesaver for me. It was what I needed to finally get off of it. And I'm so grateful that it exists.
We had a doctor on last week, Dr. Grover, who talked about the SUBLOCADE shot, and he advocates for it and believes it's one of the better routes. We're excited to have somebody who talked about the experience. So how long were you on the strips, and then how did that taper you off?
So usually every doctor's different, but usually they want you to be on the strips for a minimum of a week. Some say 2. I was really adamant about it, and money talks, and I was paying with cash and they didn't have to go through insurance. I told them like we were leaving. So I had 3 days. So they were willing to let me only take the strips for 3 days. And they definitely really tried to tell me that I needed more shots. I needed at least 3. I did one single 300 milligram because there's a 300 milligram shot and there's a 100 milligram shot. I chose the bigger one because I knew it was just going to be one and then we'd be out of state. My experience with it, the first maybe 3-4 days, I was a little bit tired. I wouldn't even really, maybe the first day I was high, if I'm being honest. After that, I was tired for a couple days and then I just felt normal for the first time in a really long time. It was miraculous. And I was expecting around 28 days. A lot of people said, sometimes you'll feel a little something. I didn't. And I will say that I'm sure traveling the country is a really nice distraction. But man, I had the energy to get out and do stuff even after that month. And then about 3 months in, I can't even remember what I was in. I did end up needing to go to the ER for something. And I checked my records, and sure enough, they did do a urinalysis on me, and it was out of my system by then. Because it leaves really slowly. Some people say that they still test positive like 6 to 9 months later. For me, it was out within 3 months.
And it sounds like the withdrawal from Kratom this time, it was pretty much disappeared.
Non-existent. I did not feel any. It was like, it was literally a get out of jail free card, an expensive one, but it was worth it for me. My current situation, my husband could not take that time off. And there's no way I could keep up with 4 kids.
Yeah. You're a mom of 4. That's
Yeah.
4 full-time jobs. So let's see. So what have you been doing? So that's a year and a half plus. What have you been doing in that time to support your abstinence, your recovery?
So unlike probably most people, I just work the meetings and NAA, all that. It's just not for me. Personally, not an all or none person. Like I use marijuana. It helps me sleep at night. I don't drink or anything like that, but just I've never been a fan of the meetings. What I do, not a lot. I'm pretty busy, but I do like to inform people and educate people. Like I'm on the Reddit forums, the Facebook groups, and I just try to just educate people who are talking about it and asking questions. They're curious about it, and I let them know my story. And they're willing to listen. I get into a lot of fights with people about its addictiveness, but that's my way. I just really want to save other people from taking this route because it is in a lot of ways worse than narcotics, I think. Scott, it's not just the mitragynine, or I don't know how to say it. There are so many different alkaloids in it, and it's coming from Thailand, and there's probably rats walking on it and pooping on it, and there's heavy metals. It's just bad stuff. It's bad.
Alkaloids, there's stimulant effects that impact your dopamine, your serotonin. And yes, there might be pesticides, the heavy metals. And so, yeah, the quality of the product and the safety of the product really varies. You've encountered out there the Kratom world that in some places just thinks it can't do any wrong. Is that part of some of your old circles and communities that you were involved in? Did you have to walk away from that because some of them are still really believe in it?
Nobody in real life, but man, the groups, yeah, I got kicked out of a bunch of groups. There was one that I intentionally joined to spread the word, but there is a group they changed their name too, but there's a group on Facebook of women that take it while they're pregnant. And quite a few of them have spoken up about the withdrawals, and then they just get kicked out of the group. But just the fact that there's these groups where women are taking this crap while they're pregnant and their babies are withdrawing and getting all that, it's sad. But yeah, I got kicked out of a lot of groups. And then the other ones that I'm currently in, they're the ones where people are actively trying to quit. And Reddit, it's just a shit show. I'm always getting into it with people on Reddit. They just don't want to hear.
Yeah.
They just don't want to admit. They just don't want to hear. I get it. Like, I've been there in my addiction too. But people are dying from this shit, man. Like, people are losing their kids from it. I don't know if I would say it should necessarily be illegal, but something's got to happen. Like, you can't just walk into a gas station and buy this crap.
But it's documented in the literature of babies being born to mothers that are dependent and their experience withdrawal syndrome.
Yep.
And so you've heard of Kratom users being aware of that, and still using?
They kick the moms out of the group when the ones that will be like, okay, my baby was born, this is what happened, they get kicked out of the group. Now, some of them say their babies were born fine. I don't know. I try to weasel my way into those groups and spread my opinion of the truth about what Kratom really is.
Yeah, about a year into the podcast, I realized, like, I made a promise to myself not to argue with strangers on the internet anymore about Kratom because it can be very frustrating. Where do we want to go from here? Let's talk about some positive things. So I know you're living the RV life, and I hear you have a couple pets. What are their names, and how do they like to be on the road?
We have 2 cats. One is Marley, and the other is Zeppelin. And then I have a dog. His name is Falcor. And they like it. They've actually had a lot of fun. The cats, we take them out on leashes and stuff, and the dog loves it, getting to smell new things and new places and see all these different states, go on hikes. It's been really great. They love it.
Do they get along?
They all get along so well. The cats were kittens when the dog was full grown when we got kittens, and they grew up with him. They love him. They all play.
With having pets outside, do you have to chip them or do some other, make sure I'd be paranoid about having them get lost.
But we take the cats out on leashes. We don't let them free roam. We have air tags on their collars. So God forbid something did happen. We have that. And they have their microchips as well.
Got it. The air tags. You can get a more immediate location on them. One of the reasons you got assigned to have me interview you is I think we both have a mutual love of the Grateful Dead.
Oh my goodness. I love it I love them so much. Nothing makes me happier. Really, nothing makes me happier.
When was the last time you saw them or one of the cover bands or anything adjacent to the Dead music?
Bristol, Virginia. I saw Dead and Company in 2019. I think it was 2019. Yeah, it was right before COVID. It was 2019, and it was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Now, there's a whole bunch of the cover bands here in Florida. I've been checking out a couple of them. I want to go see one. I haven't been to a cover band since before we started full-time RVing. I really want to go to the Sphere.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I want to go to the Sphere and see them.
Yeah, they have 6 weekends of shows, and the prices are a little scary, but that venue sounds like it's really high tech.
I've been to the outside of it. It looks phenomenal. Yeah.
If you're in Florida next winter, the last couple of years, the Wolf Brothers, which is just the three, Don Was, Jay Lane, and Bobby, they've been doing New Year's shows in Fort Lauderdale. So maybe check out that next New Year's if you're in Florida again.
We will be in Florida again, and I'm going to put that on my list as soon as I get off of here. Awesome. Thank you for that tip.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be still kicking. We lost Phil just last fall. So.
No, I know. Bobby still looks real healthy. And
How is your life today, Kratom free?
it's beautiful. I'm not going to say that I don't have my days where I really wish I had to pick me up, but I'm just so grateful to have my life back. My hair is grown back. My gosh, if I could find a picture of myself back then, I'm sure I could. I looked dead inside. I don't know how, I just was a shell of myself. And I have color in my skin again, and my eyes are not all bloodshot, and they were even turning yellow there towards the end. I just feel great. I really do. I'm feeling so good, and I'm happy. And my kids have their mom back, and I don't have kratom rage, which is another thing. Like, I would have absolute outbursts for no reason. And I really put my family through the ringer. So I'm just grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be living out my dreams. And I'm grateful to be on this podcast, spreading the word for hopefully other people to think twice before picking up that bag at the gas station.
You had all the classic kratom addiction side effects. Many of us have experienced that rage. You lost an incredible amount of weight. You had the wobbles, pre-seizures.
Yep.
Not to mention the constipation, but you also had hair loss. How did your hair loss look?
Clumps. I would just cry in the shower, and then I honestly would avoid washing my hair. It sounds sad. One time I went almost 2 weeks because I would just, every time in the shower, just clumps falling out. I was looking at wigs, and I'd say about 50% of what I lost has come back. I'm happy with it. I'll take it. I'm almost 40, so like I know that I'm going to start with some natural hair loss, but as a woman, it was really hard losing my hair. It was really hard.
I can imagine. If you're going to send a message to yourself in a year, to your future self, what would it be?
That's a good one. In a year. So myself a year from now, what would I look?
Yes.
I guess to stop stressing over the little stuff. What does this person think? Or why did I say that a week ago? I'm still stressing over. I just really need to. I think I would just tell myself to just live in the moment and stop worrying about little things. I'm convinced that my heart palpitations last time was because I was starting to get anxious about coming on the podcast. I'm like convinced because nothing was wrong with me. They said maybe I was a little bit dehydrated, but I just need to chill out. That's what I would tell myself.
Yeah, and that's why many of us were attracted to kratom to get at first it did have some calming effects. Any benefit you got really faded away quickly, and then you were just stuck on it. But being kratom free, you had to learn how to cope with that stuff. Just breathe and let most of it go.
We're too hard on ourselves, man.
If there was a top tip you would give to somebody for getting off kratom, what would that be?
If at all possible, if you have anybody that could be your support. I know some people don't have a support system, but just preparing yourself with a good support system, like letting them know what it's going to look like, what to expect, what you're going to need from them, communicating it, support system, finding a support system, whether that's going to meetings and finding people that are willing to support you or your own family, your friends, whatever, just having a support system.
You don't have to do it alone. Yep. That's really good advice.
Yeah. Just don't wait. I waited years and I'll never get those years back. And just don't wait. Do it.
You are our first listener with the SUBLOCADE shot. So is there anything more that you want to say about that? We do want to get the word about it because it is an effective tool and a lot of people don't know about it.
I would say don't stop calling around. I'm sure some smaller towns, it's going to be hard to find a place that will accept you being on kratom and not heroin. Just do your own due diligence, be your own advocate, and keep calling around until you find someone. And don't let them talk you into getting multiple. One will do it. One is more than enough. That's a lot of SUBLOCADE they're putting in your stomach. And call your insurance company. I didn't have insurance. I know that a lot more of them are starting to cover it. But if you have no option, I really had no other option and no way for my husband to support me through it. I think it's better than staying on Kratom. So I would do it.
With the SUBLOCADE shot, there isn't weaning off the strips. You're not going to be dependent on something daily. And then it has the upsides of getting you off the Kratom and avoiding those withdrawals. So it is a product that has more upside from what I'm hearing. And the Dr. Grover that we had on a couple of weeks ago was highly recommended it too. So I think the barrier is if you don't have insurance, it is $2,300 cash, if I understand right.
Yes. Now that did include that appointment to first get like the 3 days worth of strips. But yeah, you're going to, I think the shot itself is like 1,900. Go the SUBLOCADE route if you can't cold turkey, if you can't taper.
All right. Is there any questions that you have or an answer to something that you would like to give to the audience before we wrap up?
No, just like I said, don't wait. Don't wait.
Thank you. We appreciate you taking the time while you're on the road, and good luck with those 4 kids and the 3 pets. And it is smart to get your adventuring in because we don't know what the future holds.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And have you ever been along the Appalachian Trail? Springer Mountain is in Georgia there, not too far from there. So I'd recommend any part of the Appalachian Trail is beautiful if you need a place to hike.
I'll have to look up Springer Mountain. We're going to hit Georgia on our way out of Florida. So we'll check that out.
It's still up in the mountains a little bit. So up until April, it might be a little bit snowy up there, but it depends on how long you stay in Florida.
We'll check it out. Thank you. And thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much. And sorry for any technical difficulties. I'm sure we'll be able to make the sound work.
No worries. Thank you so much, Charlie. It was a pleasure being on.